Thanks, no problem at all. Oh man, you look just straight out of Scarface, believe me. You look like one of those guys at the first job that Tony Montana has, yeah? Where they go into that hotel, yeah? And the guy with the chainsaw,
Oh,
yeah?
God.
You look like one of the pendejo. You look like one of those pendejos.
Jesus Christ.
We're shitting, by the way.
I gotta get my drink.
Oh yeah, get the big one, because tonight is fan service nights with arguably one of the greatest movies of the 80s, which was not a huge box office success that it deserved.
Hard to believe, actually. I mean, it must have been a solid performer at the box office.
It was a solid hit. I mean, it was certainly acknowledged at the Oscars. Not that we care about that. But, you know, definitely The Untouchables is a masterpiece from beginning to end. And tonight, or this morning, depending when you're watching this, we're going to go through why it is a magnificent masterpiece. This is the filet mignon. This is the nirvana of filmmaking. This is definitely one of the best movies of the 80s and one of the greatest movies of all time. And we're actually just going to be quoting lines of the movie, and we don't need to do anything else.
Put one of yours in the hospital, you put one of theirs in the morgue. That's the Chicago way.
That's the Chicago way.
That's the Chicago way.
I mean, how far
Do you know what a blood oath is,
are you
Mr.
willing
Nash?
to go?
Am I going to do this all myself?
Oh, I hear the end of the lesson.
I'm like a wop to
therefore-
bring a knife to a gunfight.
It sounded anything like this.
It's my generic Sean Connery from Central Casting.
He's good. You do a good Sean Connery.
From
playing
Central Casting.
pretend you're
It's
Irish.
a remarkably authentic Irish accent.
It's one of the best ever.
Comes out with.
Okay.
Almost as good as his Egyptian in
Oh yeah, Egyptian / Spanish
Yes.
in Highlander.
Yes, my name is Don Diego Vasquez de Granados.
Okay, I gotta be fair. Okay, now when I said the Untouchables did not get the accolades it deserved, what I meant to say is that although the Untouchables was acknowledged both at the awards and at the box office, I think this flick behind us, he should have got to something like 10 or 12 Oscars, something like that. I mean, stuff like The Last Emperor gets 9 or 10. I mean, come on, and The Untouchables gets something like for editing or sound design.
But I mean, that's the nature of the Oscars, is that they don't necessarily reflect what the best movie of the year is.
Yeah.
I think there was that sort of negative view of De Palma before he made The Untouchables. It was quite a transition for him when he made it. And that maybe some of that reputation stopped him from getting the awards.
Well, let's dial it back, yeah? Shall we speak a bit about De Palma?
It's probably more your bag than mine, but go ahead.
The main of his work was kind of aimed at the midnight circuits, maybe.
Yes. Actually, he might well have been sort of the staple of the late night drive-in movie.
He really went to town with Phantom of Paradise, which is one of my favorite movies.
But it's more of a sort of a cult movie than a sort of a one that's ingrained in the public consciousness. I think Carrie probably is his first stamp movie.
Yeah, that's really a kind of a commercial attempt to really burst onto the scene.
And probably the first Stephen King or sort of big commercial
It is
successful
the
Stephen King.
first Stephen King adaptation. Yeah,
I think a lot of the trademark technique of that stage of his career is in Carrie.
Yeah.
With
it's all that a schlock. It really is a schlock director.
There is blood.
There is, and the blood in the Palma movies is a thick, dark
Viscous.
blood. Yes, and and the Untouchables seem like a depart for De Palma, going to the period drama.
I think it was at the time seen as rather an unusual choice of director for that movie, because it was a big movie. I mean, there was, I think, quite a bit of expectation behind it. Costner was riding high in his career. De Niro was still delivering good performances. Connery as well, of course, is coming back.
Yeah, all around he gets a good solid cast for it. We got to refresh the memories of everybody watching that. The Untouchables takes inspiration from two mediums. So there is obviously books in place that inspired the script, how Al Capone was actually taken down by the law, but also both the title and kind of the environment, the main environment of the movie. The main setup is straight out of the TV series with Robert Stack, The Untouchables. And that was what Paramount wanted to do, like they did again with Mission Impossible. And again with Star Trek. Paramount has this long history of just grabbing repertoire series, so syndicated series, and just bringing them back to the forefront and making feature movies out of them. So it was not unusual for Paramount to do this. It was not an unusual project. It was actually bouncing around in Hollywood for already a few years. A live action, a feature film adaptation of the TV series The Untouchables. And so they done it. They done it with Brian De Palma. He surrounds himself by a amazing team from the wardrobe by Giorgio Armani himself. His DP is
Stephen H. Buram,
which is a usual from for his movies.
And he'd worked with him previously on Body Double, and then subsequently became sort of a staple for De Palma.
Mm-hmm. See, the cast we already mentioned. So apart from Costner, De Niro, and Sean Connery, we got Andy Garcia, one of his first roles. And we got, doing the score, another Italian powerhouse, Ennio Morricone. And if that wasn't enough, we got David Mamet doing the script. And similar to what John Williams does for Spielberg movies, you couldn't really have The Untouchables that we have without David Mamet.
I think Mamet is on record as saying that the cornerstone of any good movie is a good script, and this certainly exemplifies that.
So, if you've not watched The Untouchables, you are a obviously mentally unstable person. You should stop watching us straight away, go watch a real piece of filmmaking, and then come back here and never again watch anything else. Because The Untouchables is like I said, a masterpiece from beginning to end. It's probably almost a flawless movie. But let's just bring you up to it in case you have no idea what we're talking about. Okay, so in a nutshell, set in Chicago, Al Capone was, just like the poster says, ruling the city with an iron fist. He had bought a lot of people in high places, police, statesmen, politicians, and it was pretty hard to take him down on any level. And until a team federally appointed and led by Elliot Ness finally decides to take the fight to him, which eventually led to prosecution of Al Capone and his organization for, of all things, tax evasion. The movie basically concentrates on the creation of the team, the actual literal fight that ensues, and then eventually the arrest of Capone and the prosecution. Obviously does this in a complete mythological representation of actually what happened. The series of Robert Stack, the TV series, actually alluded to that step by step. It was actually a serious series about that serious series. While the movie really is Americana from beginning to the end. These characters are no longer Al Capone and Elliot Ness. They're become now mythological heroes and villains.
That's right. We're sort of dealing with archetypes. I mean, again, Mamet is pursuing a sort of hero myth journey, starting with the neophyte Ness coming in and working against the corruption of the department, and building a team together and finding someone who can be his mentor and so on. And Capone is portrayed very much as a sort of a villain, an archetypal villain. There's no nuance to his character. It's interesting that Stephen Graham, who plays Capone in the Boardwalk Empire series, is portrayed. They show him much more as being a family man. There's no such misconception with De Niro's performance. He is the caricature villain.
Yes, as much as Kevin Costner playing Elliot Ness is the clean-cut hero, which is, as the name says, untouchable, meaning he is not bought in any way. You cannot soil his reputation. He's a man that will go to the grave following a straight line. And if you really want to make any dramatic statements about the plot. It's really about that. It's about to see where is the point where the hero can crack and actually step over that line. But heck, we're not even going to talk about that, because from the beginning to the end, this is about heroes and villains, and there's nothing here that is beyond that. There's no underlying statements, no subjective ideas here. Black and white.
Exactly, and I'm glad you said that, because one might mention in passing the palette that's used in the color scheme that's used in the movie, because in a very nice sort of reversal of expectation, the heroes wear black, the villains are dressed in white,
very much
particularly Capone's henchmen.
Capone's, I mean, even Capone uses quite light colors throughout, but yes, the main Capone henchman is right-hand man.
Here I am, treasure man. Come on, harass me. What are you waiting for? Don't just stand there. Harass me.
Don't push me. They're gonna burn you, buddy.
Yeah?
Yeah. I'm gonna come see you burn, you son of a bitch, because you killed my friend.
He died like a pig.
What did you say?
I said that your friend died screaming like a stuck Irish pig. Now you think about that when I beat the rat. Hey! Ah! Ah! Did it sound anything like that?
There's a great visual climax of that scene.
Yes,
that
everything
when
is
a
perfect.
character is pushed towards the edge of the building, you really feel that. Is it a contra zoom?
No, it's not a contra zoom. He just places the camera backwards. So first it has the actors here very close, and then in order to stretch the actual distance to make it more dramatic, he actually repositions the camera back, which a lot of times modern audiences will interpret as a filmic typo. But it's actually not. It's a technique. It's on purpose, and that is the excellence of De Palma.
And also, there's apart from the whites and the blacks, there's a third color that's introduced, which is red. And in the, I think, third major scene in the movie, there's a great tracking shot. And by the way, we'll come back to that. De Palma loves his tracking shots. That follows a newspaper being delivered to the front door of the hotel where Capone is in residence. And the camera follows the newspaper being taken up through the hotel lobby, up the stairs, all the way to the room where Capone's staying. And the whole journey is accompanied by a red carpet. So basically, quite literally, there's this whole trail of blood that goes straight up to Capone. Later on in the movie, and one won't say in a glaring continuity error, but the hotel is filmed again. There is no sign of that carpet again. Morricone's score at that point is straight out of a Bond movie.
Yeah, it's very much a bluesy kind of score at that moment.
A sort of cornet that John Barry would have used at the height of his powers.
But it's exactly the sort of score you might not expect at that precise moment in time, which is almost like a cool kind of introduction to the lair. But
that's a very good point, because I want you to remember it was a very cool movie.
Yeah, it is a cool movie. I mean, when one says that we're not going to read any subjective interpretations into the film is one thing. The other one is say that this is a lesson into filmmaking grammar. That's another. Because yes, from beginning to end, this is one of those love letters to cinema. De Palma, I'm bringing up maybe an expression we already used several times in this show, is uses every trick in the book. This is a movie that, really wants to grab you from the beginning to the end. He wants to entertain you, and he wants you to have a hell of a trip, enjoying the peril that the heroes go through, and to put down these despicable villains. These are clean-cut characters. There's good guys, there's bad guys. There cannot be any doubts about it. And everything around them, the way that the movie is shot, the way that the movie is presented, he spells that out for you. And I gotta say, this actually has become in some viewers' opinions, the thing that they have against it is that it's a movie that basically is kind of biting it all and then just putting it on the platter for you.
Well, sort of an exercise in style without any sort of heft behind it.
Yes.
But, that's not to take into account quite how good the script is.
It is very good. We could spend the whole episode just kissing the butt of this movie in acknowledging how outstanding every scene is, how perfection the camera works, how great the acting is, how on point the choreography is executed. We can just say, for example, the use of these wide-angle lenses, set low, which straight away gives you a view of the characters as these larger-than-life people.
The thing about De Palma is that he's a very visual director with such a strong sense of the shots that he wants that he almost doesn't need a DP. And he uses a lot of very fluid camera work in the movie. There's a great scene, for instance, in the church between Ness and Sean Connery, that uses a diachronic lens, which is a lens that enables you to keep both the foreground in sharp focus and also the background.
Hey, there's again the same shot in the end scene, one of the end scenes, the courthouse, where Elliot Ness is shot at a very low angle, a superb shot which kind of almost makes you think that you can squeeze a Panavision camera into 2 centimeters.
Big bulky instruments, aren't they?
Big bulky instrument, where the hero is shot like this with the ceiling of the courthouse fully visible beyond. After we introduce overhead shot of Al Capone, and De Palma chooses to have the remaining characters on that scene completely stationary, just to give you enough time to read the text on the screen. As soon as the text is gone and the camera has already lowered enough above Capone, then the journalists move forward. And speaking about style, this is not the only time where tricks like this are used. Right after that, another superb moment, which is actually 2 scenes, and this is the movie that deserves that we completely peel it off scene by scene. We introduce then the opposition, our hero, with his wife, helping him getting dressed in the morning, preparing his breakfast, and all the time we don't see his face until we have a revolving shot that starts with a policeman introducing him and then turning until you actually reveal the hero. And it's, come on, how better can that get?
Yeah, I mean, it's classic technique, the delayed revelation.
Beautiful. We go on with Elliot Ness, that hasn't have had much luck in trying to disturb the trafficking of alcohol.
That's right. He starts out the movie very much as sort of the naive who's there to do good and shake things up. And of course, they're all running rings around him.
Yeah. So there's no chance he could get anything from his own department. But eventually he meets the guy that, he's the wizard of the story, the old man that's going to guide him in his journey. And that's Sean Connery character. And like you pointed out very well, he meets him over a bridge, the bridge that the hero has to cross in order to get to the next section of the...
Yeah, just at the moment of the deepest despair of the
and he's
of the
about to
hero.
give up.
Exactly. That's when the help arrives.
That's right.
Are you okay, pal?
I had a rough day on the job.
Are you going home now?
I was about to.
Well then, you just fulfilled the first rule of law enforcement. Make sure when your shift is over, you go home alive. Here endeth the lesson.
And then he goes on to recruit the rest of the team, which obviously recruits them in unlikely places.
You don't go for the rotten fruit.
You don't get it from the basket, you get it straight from the tree. So he enters the police academy to recruit Andy Garcia, which is a sharpshooter. He's also a hot-blooded Italian, the only one on the team. And then eventually recruits another member, which happens to be an accountant.
He has not filed a return since 1926.
A return.
An income tax return.
Which eventually will prove itself to be quite valuable.
That's right. He's initially introduced as a bit of an irritation because he keeps on pestering Ness about the apparently implausible way of going after Capone by pursuing his tax returns, which of course is the way that Capone is eventually caught. And despite the most unlikely of dramatic premises, it's really ramped up in the tension of the movie in the presence of the bookkeeper.
Well, you got a badge, yeah?
That's right.
Carry a gun.
You carry a badge, carry a gun.
Now, are you ready to go to work?
Where are we going?
On a liquor rig. I need another man.
And that's it's very interesting. I found a financial disbursement pattern here which shows some irregular...
You carry a badge?
Yes?
Carry a gun.
And that basically becomes the whole, the main plot strand. They eventually have a mission into the Canadian border where they manage to secure, a liquor shipment, but also they manage to arrest the guy that will eventually lead them to the bookkeeper.
Yeah, so it's a great scene and shows some of the confidence of De Palma as a filmmaker in a movie that is actually primarily about gangsterism in urban Chicago. That's obviously not enough for De Palma. He wants to take it right out into the American countryside and film a sequence that's essentially a western.
Yeah, it's basically a western in the middle of
just as a sort of cavalry charge.
And you do like as well the long De Palma shots, which is something that he's also known for. The long take. He had done it before in Body Double. He had done it before as well in Dress to Kill. Blowout. There's quite a few of those. It's something that he's learning from, taking away from the Hitchcock movies, which he was always a big fan of, and he acknowledges his guidance throughout much of the work he has done, and the long shot becomes kind of a staple of De Palma, and he's also used in this movie, but quite elegantly, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, really, he's at the top of his trade by the time he's made this movie, and the precise length of any long shot sequence is perfectly timed. There's nothing self-indulgent about it, as regrettably there is later on in his career in Snake Eyes, for instance.
When he starts overdoing it.
Part of the expectation that audiences had about the movie when it was initially released was that it was reviving a very fond genre of the gangster movie of the 1930s, the Cagney movies and the Bogart movies, which shows that De Palma is very much at home with the idea of genre, to such an extent that he's able to provide in one of the dramatic key points of the movie, in the climax towards the climax of the movie, in which he pays a remarkable homage to the classic Eisenstein movie Battleship Potemkin. This is a profoundly well-timed and worked out and extremely suspenseful, dramatic recreation of the Potemkin steps. That again features a pram cascading down that is saved at the last minute by Elliot Ness, Kevin Costner, which perfectly exemplifies again the theme of the movie that we've talked about, which is how far are you prepared to go in order to defeat the evil.
bottom line is, The Untouchables is a very theatrical movie. There is and this is quite cool because being such a filmic film is actually quite theatrical.
elements to it. Very much so.
Halfway through, Capone is watching an Italian opera.
Pagliacci.
And then actually the tenor of the opera is invited to his own banquet. And De Palma, being an Italian family himself, that's exactly what he does. The movie is coordinated almost like an opera. There is, the clear three acts, and David Mamet orchestrates the script in a way, the hero's journey, the up, and then the climax, and down again. And it's almost like De Palma is not just placing himself in Italian opera, but also, almost using theatrical staples from around the world, like kabuki. Everything is exaggerated. Everything is larger than life. When the final villain is thrown out of the roof of the building, he chooses to do a blue screen shot of the villain just waving his arms and a big close-up on him, which is completely out of place there. But that is the beauty of it, because this has to be sang out, like the final area of a big dramatic opera, and that is the great beauty of The Untouchables.
And again, there's a great visual contrast, because the villain ends up fallen onto a set of 3 cars, and again the contrast in colour between his white suit and the black of the vehicle,
with another overhead
and the diagonal too. So it's a great shot.
So everything De Palma uses, everything that everybody brought into this movie, really is an excellent. Just produces an excellent product.
To consider that sequence too, the Pagliacci sequence, it's a classic use of cross-cutting, which again shows that De Palma is going back to the origins of cinema, is that he's both using that language of the cross-cutting, which comes from D.W. Griffiths, and also montage from Eisenstein. He really is at the top of his game.
We could go on.
There could be a part 2, part 3, but that will probably try your patience.
It's the sort of movie where we could dissect every single scene and always find a new thing or find a new pleasure on a particular shot or a particular moment. So this really is a great movie. This is an episode for the fans of this movie and fans of cinema in general. And I really hope that if you haven't watched this, to really catch it anywhere you can.
I think the message is, if you haven't seen the movie, you're in for a treat. Watch it. If you have seen it, watch it again.
And just like the journalist that interrupts Ness in the final scene says, what you going to do now? Well, we're going to have a drink.
I think he would have wanted you to have that.
He'd have wanted a cop to have it. I'm going home.
Mr. Ness! Mr. Ness, any comment for the record? The man who put Al Capone on the spot.
I just happened to be there when the wheel went round.
They say they're going to repeal Prohibition. What will you do then?
I think I'll have a drink.